What about yourself do you not talk about because people would just assume you're lying? When I was in middle school, my girlfriend really did go to another school. My oldest known ancestor in our family tree was a guy in the early 1400s named Sicko Homan. It sounds like a joke, but it's not. I think it's hilarious as fuck. But people generally don't believe me unless I show them our lineage book. My uncle worked for Nintendo. He was an office worker who wasn't involved in any way with the development of video games. It isn't worth mentioning. Have had people tell me to my face that I'm lying when I've confided in them that I was raped as a child. I am close personal friends with several people who are very well connected in politics in the country I live in. When I hear other people talking about politics, I sometimes want to chime in, but I usually don't, for fear that people either won't believe me, or they will think I'm trying to brag. The fact that my grandma won't divorce my grandpa for the sole purpose of inheriting his beach property. The fact that I have never had a romantic relationship ever. I have a third nipple. I actually have a very large penis. Even if it wasn't in poor taste to mention, nobody would ever believe you if you told them this year. I always just joke around that it's super tiny. Never been kissed, never had GF, and still a virgin. I was diagnosed with autism as a child and was unable to read faces and understand metaphors until someone explained it to me. I learned a lot by reading books and watching movies, and also had many years of practice. No one would believe me now that my perfectly natural-looking behavior and empathy is actually the product of lifelong hard work. I've been shot twice by the same guy, tear gassed in Jamaica, robbed by the Mexican police while I was on a surf trip. I have friends in both the FBI and Navy SEALs. And I partied in the 1980s with Anthony Kiedis. I found out I had an uncle when he was arrested for murder. A. I can't smell. B. I've been in far too many situations that seem like they belong in that happened. So I just don't speak about them, which is sad because some of them are pretty funny. I've had sex with well over 50 people. I don't seem like the type because I'm pretty square about everything else in life. I rarely talk about the flood I experienced. Dozens of people died. I nearly died, and was so stupid trying to check on other people I am shocked I didn't. I walked across a bridge that would be absolute rubble a few hours later, and got way too deep in the water. I was up to my chest at some points. And if I'd been caught by a current, I'd be dead. I saw the bodies of animals floating in the flood and human bodies lined up in bags at a park across from where we lived. I saw many people crying over lost loved ones all night, and couldn't sleep for days. No one I knew died, but everyone I knew lost someone. I used to tell this story, but no one ever said anything. Same with my experiences nearly being shot. I just stopped talking about these experiences because no one cared that much. And many people act like I made these stories up. I know the symptoms of PTSD and I don't seem to have them this year. I just have some horrible experiences that I don't talk about because I don't think anyone believes me. Edit. Bad phrasing. I can see colors when I hear music or words, but I'm afraid that people would just assume that I have dementia and try to get me to a therapist. We think we're distantly related. Taryn Burr. The fact that when I was a child, a man came into my bedroom through my window. I mistook him for my grandpa in the dark and I got excited and started talking rather loudly, and after shushing me didn't work, he quickly exited back through the window. When I got older, it hit me how creepy this was, and I know now that it definitely was not my grandpa. Never been on a date. Never been kissed. Virgin at 20. All my friends assume I've at least been kissed. When I talk about how angry I feel all the time, people just think I'm trying to be edgy. So then I just bottled it down even more, and I don't think that helped. I grew up in a very sheltered life, so I just pretend I know what people are talking about when they talk about movies, music, TV shows, etc. that I don't know. For context, I watched my first movie at 15 and didn't know who Taylor Swift was. That I died and came back to life. I had a really trippy experience while I was dead. I was 9 years old and had a really bad infection. I had a fever of 103 to 104 and was vomiting almost all day every day for a week. I'd lost some weight and my body was super weak. Doctors had no idea what was really going on. I died in my sleep for about 5 minutes. While I was out or either sleeping, I had a really trippy out-of-body experience. I was walking. I knew I was leaving my body in this world. I could see my dad and I began to pray for him. I ended up walking to the end of the hallway and started crying by a window. I didn't want to die. I could see the sun in the sky and what looked like 2 other lights dancing around it. I felt like one was my soul. I ended up all of the sudden feeling at peace, and I walked back to my body. Woke up and the fever subsided, and within a few days, I was back home and 100%. Maybe it was a dream or maybe some near-death experience, but I still remember it to this day pretty vividly. I witnessed the plane crashes on 9/11. It's not that unreasonable. NYC is full of people. Presumably quite a few of them were watching the skyline at the time. But I've found that every time the event comes up, there's no organic way to say, yeah, I watched it happen out of my classroom window. Not just the smoke, but the planes hitting. Honestly, it's easier to not even bring it up. It feels like some sort of dark one-upsmanship whenever I do. I was in a school shooting. On Reddit. I can't talk about anything from my life without being accused of lying. I mean anything. Why is it so hard to believe I grew up in a small town and we went to insane lengths to amuse ourselves? Sometimes I think Redditors must be the most boring people alive. I don't talk about how I was taken advantage of by a friend. I told a couple close friends and they asked her and chose to believe her over me. I'm a guy who is part of a Nigerian royal household. That I have 3 black belts. A lot of people seem to think that martial arts only exist in movies, and that no one actually practices in real life. Even in the middle of Hickville, nowhere, USA, you can find dojos with a few dozen students. Some people drive by these places every day to and from work, yet still have trouble grasping that martial arts is a real thing outside of movies. Yeah, we got a bunch of Jackie Chans just running around. Sure. No. Jackie Chan performs an art. Dislocating someone's shoulder to make them drop a knife doesn't look anywhere near as cool as it does on screen. It's fucking scary. And it happens. I have an extremely muted emotional spectrum. I feel almost nothing day to day. It's funny how what makes you the cringy goth kid as a teenager is called a diagnosis as an adult. That I'm a French model. They assume I'm lying because I am. I climbed a mountain in a blizzard. Not out of toughness but out of being too stubborn. I had to see the waterfall on the other side and do a lame pose in a picture. In that I got specially mentioned by a judge at a jazz band competition at Eastern Illinois University for my exemplary piano playing. But literally didn't even play a note. I just bobbed around on my seat, pretended to hit chords, and acted like I was enjoying myself. Ha ha ha. I can last up to an hour in bed. That I don't celebrate my birthday. And also I don't drink alcohol. I feel like there's more stigma attached because I'm 22 years old. The fact that I am still a virgin despite being a 23-year-old woman and not all that unattractive. I don't talk about my autism because people don't believe me, because this is their words, not mine. I looked a normal looking, or am I lying, just doing it for attention? I don't know how to respond to that. I just look at people and smile because sometimes it doesn't register in my head. A lot of stuff, actually. I grew up in a Turkish ghetto, but I look like a preppy white boy. I broke the noses of 6 different people by the time I was 12. Mostly with kicks. I lost my virginity at 13. This was all while I was enrolled in one of the most prestigious ballet schools in the country. I landed in an alcohol-induced coma at 15. I've tried to kill myself 2 times. I landed in another alcohol-induced coma at 19. I once set a car on fire in order to try and blow it up. I have given concussions to 2 different people. One a good friend, one a bully. I have jumped from a 22 meters high cliff and dove from approximately 13 meters. I was sexually assaulted, raped by my ex-GF once. I knew a girl who was raped by her father and shipped out of the country with no trace when CPS and the police came to investigate. I don't expect anyone to believe all this shit even in this thread, lol. 20. I was born with a genetic condition. The only thing affected is my body produces way more natural testosterone than the average male. I'm a 100% normal and healthy. I have basically the best benefits having it much testosterone can give, with very few downsides. Google search is mostly right. I don't tell anyone because the moment they hear testosterone, people just think I'm trying to be alpha, talking dick size, or get defensive. I tend to leave out that I've dated 2 professional models. If people believe me, they just think I'm bragging. If not, then I'm lying to look cool. Years ago I had a gun misfire when it was pointed at my face. Some boss was trying to rob my then GF and myself, pulled his gun, and when we weren't moving fast enough, pulled the trigger. It was the loudest click I have ever heard, but nothing happened. We looked at each other. I made sure the GF was okay. Then I chased him down and beat the shit out of him. Monsieur, I never talk about it because it sounds so cliched, but also, and I freely admit this, I pissed myself when I thought I was about to die. I have high IQ, perfect pitch, close to photographic memory. I'm a super recognizer, and have synesthesia, but they all sound like positive things, so it seems like a lie. I'm 19 and I've held hands with a girl once. She actually was holding my wrist. That I can cook pretty much anything. You are throwing a recipe at me, or am amazingly good at playing guitar. Quite funny how now girls look at me with big eyes when they see me doing it. The risk of an STD during sex terrifies me. I was stalked by a man who wanted a relationship and went as far as to contact my mother and GP. When I started to get the police involved, he tried to get me sectioned as he believed I was schizophrenic. That we had a relationship and I was just too ill to understand this. I don't tell people because it was a shitty situation. I want to move on, and honestly I think people would think I'm lying. BC, I'm ugly AF and not that fun to be around, and why would anyone put that kind of effort into following me? I was on Jimmy Kimmel Live. I apparently have an IQ of 144. I never noticed it so far, so I don't bring it up. Always had nothing but straight F's in math. Only the occasional depleting face. The fact I see dead people